From the station working for you, this is WRTV News at 5:30, streaming now.
Tonight here at 5:30, who is Barbara Lagoa? That's the question of high interest as we wait for word of Donald Trump's nominee to the Supreme Court. We'll explore her background.
Topping our lineup this Friday, our mental health is a growing concern as we work from home longer. The new way your manager may start checking in with you and the new technology trying to help you disconnect at the end of the day. Also, more churches are worried they'll have to close because of the pandemic. The extreme measures some pastors are taking to survive. And getting more Black Americans to the polls. How a virtual relay of historical sites from the civil rights movement is hoping to inspire more voters.
President Trump will announce his Supreme Court nominee tomorrow. Yesterday, we highlighted federal appeals court judge Amy Coney Barrett, a Hoosier who appears to be a favorite. But as Amber Strong with our partners at Newsies tell us, a judge in Florida may also be in the running, in part because she's from a swing state in the race for the White House.
On President Trump's list of potential nominees for the Supreme Court is federal judge Barbara Lagoa.
She's an extraordinary person. I've heard incredible things about her. I don't know her. She's Hispanic and highly respected.
So who is Barbara Lagoa? Born to parents in Miami who left Cuba under Fidel Castro's rule, the 52-year-old Lagoa has had an extensive judicial career in Florida. In a case that saw national attention in 2000, she was part of a legal team trying to prevent a 5-year-old refugee named Elian Gonzalez from being returned to Cuba. Lagoa spent roughly a decade as a judge in Florida's Court of Appeals before Governor Ron DeSantis appointed her to the Florida Supreme Court in January of 2019. Her appointment made her the first Hispanic woman to serve on the state's Supreme Court.
That I am duly qualified.
That I am duly qualified.
To hold office.
To hold office.
Under the Constitution of the state.
Under the Constitution of the state.
But Lagoa's time on the state Supreme Court was short. She served for 9 months before President Trump nominated her for the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals. She was overwhelmingly approved by the Senate, 80-15. So where does Lagoa stand when it comes to rulings? In confirmation hearings, she told the Senate she considers Roe v. Wade the, quote, binding precedent of the Supreme Court. As for any potential pushback, Lagoa will likely face scrutiny for a federal case that upheld a law requiring felons in Florida to pay their court fines before being re-granted voting rights. She was criticized by lawmakers, including Senator Kamala Harris, for not recusing herself from the case, as she played a role in the creation of an advisory opinion while back on Florida's Supreme Court. Now, should Lagoa be nominated, there's speculation she could help President Trump gain the support of Hispanic voters ahead of the election. Amber Strong, Newsy, Northern Virginia.
A nice finally Friday here across central Indiana, getting ready to take us into the weekend. The wind hasn't been too much of a factor, but it has started to turn out of that southerly direction, which is continuing to bring us some warm temperatures out there. Many areas, especially across the western portion of the state, in the lower 80s this afternoon and evening. 77 right now in Indy, and we look further back to the west. There's some summer heat, 90s now in portions of Nebraska. We're not going to get that warm, but we will see some of the 80s working their way here across the Hoosier State as we get into the weekend. Very dry. It continues to be that way. We're now more than 2.5 inches below average in rainfall for the month of September. This evening, we'll keep those mostly clear skies. Comfortable temperatures, upper 60s at 9. Will be around 67 degrees at 10 o'clock this evening. And tomorrow, if you're taking part in the virtual Colts 5K, some nice running weather there. Temperatures will start off around 60 degrees. Lindsay?
A mutation of the coronavirus may allow it to spread more easily. This is from a new study currently going through peer review. The collaborative report was put together by scientists in Houston. One of the co-authors tells us this particular mutation is important because it shows how the virus is changing in response to our immune systems. And this mutation has swept the globe, now 100% prevalent in the UK and US.
We're not the first to see this, but it's just shocking that such a point mutation has completely, this one mutation has completely spread through the world very, very rapidly over the course of a few months.
Now, all viruses mutate, so that's expected. The good news about this mutation is that it has not made COVID-19 more deadly, just more easily transmitted. Plus, compared to other viruses like the common cold or the flu, the coronavirus changes more slowly, which is also good news for potential treatments.
There's hope that the first generation vaccines that are already in production and the antibody therapeutics that are going to be coming out soon are going to be very effective against the strains of virus we are seeing now. But we must continue to be vigilant, and studies like this one allow us to stay ahead of the virus by seeing how it's adapting.
The co-authors have noticed some other mutations in the virus that they're keeping an eye on. Now, more tests are needed to find out if those are becoming fixed or they're just blips on the radar. Checking the news feed, investigators in France are looking into a knife attack in Paris. 2 people were hurt. The attack happened near the former offices of the satirical newspaper Charlie Hebdo. The census count will continue through the end of October. A judge agreed with civil rights groups, saying the shortened schedule would undercount people in minority communities. The FDA is looking into reports of a so-called Benadryl challenge. Teenagers in the challenge are encouraged to take large doses of the drug, but many have ended up in the ER with serious injuries, and some people have even died. Still ahead in our lineup, our mental health is a growing concern as we work from home longer. The new way your manager may start checking in with you, and the new technology trying to help you disconnect at the end of the day.
Tonight, we are learning new information about a double homicide investigation in Carroll County. The coroner says both the 73-year-old man and 35-year-old woman found dead after a house fire were killed by gunshot wounds. The Carroll County Sheriff's Office identified a suspect vehicle that matched the description from a suicide case in Miami County. Investigators from both counties worked together and determined the man who killed himself was also at the home in Carroll County before the fire. The Sheriff's Office believes that man, Daniel Doe, is responsible for the deaths of the people found in the home.
As people continue to work from home, Microsoft is adding on some features to its Teams software. Teams will suggest tasks to help employees wind down at the end of every day and have workers rate how their day was. The program will also suggest guided meditation through the Headspace app. Human resources experts say by now companies have figured out the logistics of working from home, so now their next task is to figure out how to protect employees from burnout, loneliness, and isolation.
It impacts, one, their likelihood of quitting. So employees who feel isolated are simply more likely to quit their employer. And 2, the other problem that starts to emerge from that is mental health problems. That employees, when they feel more lonely, more isolated, they start to struggle from feelings of depression.
In addition to checking up on how employees are feeling, managers are also being trained to spot signs of burnout and stress. Some companies are now giving employees access to mental health professionals. Companies may also start tracking how many hours people are actually working, as well as other things like how much sleep employees are getting. But workers may not always be willing to hand over that information.
By getting a third party involved that's actually delivering the services, that makes employees dramatically more comfortable in terms of letting their employer have this type of information about them.
Brian Kropp at Gartner HR says that employees are about twice as likely to be comfortable with having certain information tracked than they were about 5 years ago. These types of programs will likely become the mainstream in large companies in about 5 years. 2 universities are looking if the recommended 14-day quarantine for COVID-19 could be shortened with more testing.
Anyone who is quarantined, we would test on day 3, day 5, day 7, day 10, and day 14.
That's what they're trying at the University of Kentucky and the University of Tennessee right now. Researchers want to see if enough tests come back negative in under 14 days. The results from the study could be passed on to the CDC to help the agency with quarantine guidance. More to get to in our lineup. Churches are worried they'll have to close because of the pandemic. The extreme measures that some pastors are taking just to survive. Taking a look at our news feed, the Olympic Games are still on for next year, but they'll be a little different. Olympic committee members have agreed to simplify the Games in Tokyo in order to cut costs. There will be fewer staff and stakeholders. Opening ceremonies will also be scaled back. As tourism reaches new lows, the city of Rome is turning to corporate sponsors to save its monuments. The companies will help pay for restoring and maintaining statues and ancient archaeological sites. The annual Carnival in Rio de Janeiro will not happen next year. Organizers say the spread of coronavirus has made it impossible to safely hold the famous samba parade. Brazil had its first confirmed case of COVID reported just 1 day after Carnival ended this year. For a fruit farmer who knew nothing about growing flowers, the pandemic was the perfect nudge to try something new. So he plowed over his strawberry fields to plant a patch of sunshine. As Usher Qureshi found, it's grown beyond his wildest dreams.
We've been around for just about 100 years.
Scott Thompson's family has been farming strawberries in Wisconsin for generations.
Now we've kind of morphed over the years where we have raspberries and pumpkins as well.
But this year, the Pick Your Own Farm traded sweet fruits for something more picturesque.
This year is our first crack at Pick Your Own Sunflowers.
Even though Thompson knew very little about the bright yellow flower, he started out slow until the pandemic hit, and then he had a thought.
This might be something that people might be really interested in. And so I started planting, did, a small 4-acre field, then another 4 acres, then 10 acres, so it just kind of grew.
He ended up planting not hundreds or thousands, but 2.2 million sunflowers like these across 22 acres of fields.
Having sunflowers is cool, but having a lot of sunflowers, that's really cool.
For visitors like Sarah Akers and her 2-year-old son Xavier, it's an eye-popping treat.
When they said how big it was, this is not what I was expecting. It definitely is more impressive than what it sounds like when you just read about it.
A paradise for pollinators.
It's a perfectly natural social distancing activity.
The massive blooms have attracted visitors from all over the country.
I love it. I think it's beautiful.
Turning Thompson's farm into his very own golden field of dreams.
You could really just go out and have a fun time and kind of forget about reality for a little bit. Just enjoy being out here in this sea of yellow flowers.
And in a year like 2020, a little sunshine goes a long way. In Bristol, Wisconsin, I'm Usher Qureshi.
A major project in Lawrence is picking up speed today. Groundbreaking for the new $15 million transportation center for Lawrence Township schools. It will be located on the 10,000 block of East 52nd Street. The transportation department is currently housed on Thunderbird Road in a facility designed to house and service about 100 buses. But right now it handles an overload of more than 200.
It is the main artery of what we do in our school corporation. Our children and families need this center. Gets our students to school every single day, and it provides quality transportation, not just some, but quality transportation to all of our students.
The new site will accommodate over 200 buses as well as the parking needs of staff and visitors. The project just should be completed by November of next year. Kyle.
And those construction projects progressing along because of all the dry weather that we have had. Enjoying a lot of sunshine, though, as we look across Indianapolis here on our Friday afternoon and evening. And if you're going to be maybe washing the car this weekend, still going to be a nice time to do that. I think you'll kind of get your money's worth here as we're going to stay with dry weather. As we get into early next week, though, rain chances do finally return to the forecast. Saturday, though, make some plans to get outside. Temperatures are going to warm pretty quickly here after starting around 60 degrees, mid-70s for you at noon, 82 with some sunshine for the afternoon high. And around central Indiana, we'll find a high of 82 in the Bloomington area, 84 in Lafayette, and 84 in Columbus. It will be a little breezy as we go into the afternoon. And for Sunday's Colts game, that kickoff happening a little after 4 o'clock. So we'll take you into the afternoon and evening hours. Once again, temperatures into the lower 80s with partly cloudy skies. As we get into the evening, just a 20% chance of rain. And this is TrueCast Sunday evening. You can see that best chance for a couple of showers really over the northwestern portion of the state. As we go into the overnight hours, we see a little more of that rain trying to fill in, but by Monday morning, not a whole lot left here. Just a couple of showers to kind of get things started for us. But we will have about a 30% chance of rain there on Monday in that 7-day planning forecast. And that's where temperatures do start to cool off. We'll go from 70s Monday afternoon to the mid-60s on Tuesday. And by Friday, we are struggling for a high of 60 degrees.
Now let's check the news feed. New data shows only about 100 kids and teenagers have died from COVID-19 in the U.S. It's interesting because respiratory diseases normally hit the younger and the older populations the hardest. Researchers still don't know why the coronavirus is different. However, people in their 20s accounted for nearly a quarter of cases this summer. A new CDC analysis brings the median age down from the spring. That means young people are less vulnerable to getting seriously sick, but have contributed to community spread. You'll soon be able to see how prevalent the virus is in your area using Google Maps. The app will show if cases are increasing or decreasing. They'll be shaded with different colors to show how many new cases there are. The data will be coming from 3 sources. 2 former leaders of a veterans home are now facing criminal charges, including neglect. At least 76 coronavirus patients have died at the Holyoke Soldiers Home in Massachusetts. We previously spoke to families who lost loved ones there. Well, now they formed a coalition to prevent the same mistakes and an outbreak from happening again. The governor released a plan that includes $6 million for infection control and a promise to add more staffing. Religious institutions are being pushed to the point of bankruptcy during the pandemic. Alexa Liaco shows us the help some are relying on to try to survive.
Bless you all. How y'all doing this morning?
This line is a familiar sight to Pastor Bernard Taylor.
Make sure you give them some water too.
Families in need know when they come to this Brooklyn church, they'll be met with open arms.
It's for you. You're with it.
And met with a helping hand.
It means a lot, a whole lot for the community.
All because this church does a whole lot for its neighbors.
We got chicken, we got steak, we got franks. We feed up to 105,000 people per year, and the number quite naturally is going to grow due to the pandemic.
More people need fresh food, school supplies, and clothing than ever before, and the Open Door Church of God in Christ provides it all.
Whether it's rain, sun, hail, snowstorm, we're here.
But the pandemic is just as threatening to the church as it is to the community.
Some people have lost their homes, some people can't make ends meet, and some people are really struggling. And if they're struggling, we struggle because it's a trickle-down effect. And so if they're not receiving, then they can't give.
The empty pews,
grace and peace be unto you,
often translate into near-empty collection baskets, leaving the church's staff and its programs in a tough spot.
There's been many times that I said, well, I don't know what we're going to do.
The business behind many churches in the U.S. is in for a long recovery. The Barna Group found 1 in 3 people who regularly attended church have stopped watching online services. And a leader with Lifeway Research, a group studying churches, estimates 5% of churches will close permanently before the end of the year because of COVID-19, a number 5 times higher than typical yearly closures.
I had to put in $5,000 of my own personal money at one time just to see the payroll get taken care of. And I don't look for it back. I give it from my heart. And whatever I have to do, I give my last.
To make sure this church could survive, a group called Churches Helping Churches also got involved, donating $3,000 to this church and others across the nation who offer their community much more than a house of worship.
I'm not working, so I'm glad that I can come here.
Pastor Taylor fears if his church can't serve the community, they will lose something greater than a place to gather.
What is really at stake here?
Well, what's at stake is people lose hope. And we don't want people to lose hope.
But he has a plan to make sure his business of helping others stays in business.
We have to make sure that we do 3 things. Number 1, we have to adjust, have services coming in your living room, in your man cave. We have to adapt, and then we can overcome.
Adapting to a life of coming together while staying apart.
It's a new normal for all of us.
To overcome the hunger in the community in both body and soul.
Help me say together. Together we'll make it. We'll get through it together.
I'm Alexa Liaco.
Finally in our lineup, getting more Black Americans to the polls. How a virtual relay of historical sites from the Civil Rights Movement is hoping to inspire more voters. This weekend, a massive relay to inspire Black voters is ending in D.C. The Women Run the Vote campaign went virtual with a goal of helping marginalized communities find power together.
Where we're going to ask folks to, find out what's on the ballot in your communities and how can you engage with that this upcoming election cycle and beyond.
Keisha Roberson works with one of the groups that organized the relay. They've raised more than $260,000 for Black Voters Matter, with 10,000 joining in. Given the recent social unrest, Roberson wants this relay to be about finding a sense of control for the upcoming election.
We don't want to be caught off guard. We don't want to feel like we could have or should have done more. And I think that is really what makes this moment, this time, very special.
Each person is on a team logging activities that translate into miles online, and as the team moves from Atlanta to Washington, the platform highlights historical sites from the civil rights movement. Roberson hopes the educational aspect is a big takeaway.
We always hear about the Martin Luther Kings and the Rosa Parks, but these folks started as everyday people like you and I. And I hope that when this is all said and done, that they'll see that you as an individual can inspire others.
There's a plan for everyone to follow the final stretch of the 680-mile route on Sunday so that all 660 teams can finish the relay together online. The pandemic has forced millions around the world out of their places of worship into virtual congregations. But could technology play an even greater role in religion in the future? We're getting in this debate on Monday.
If you're not quite ready for that fall feel in the air, well, this weekend is for you. We've got a couple of days in the 80s, both Saturday and Sunday. Quite a bit of sunshine. We will see just an isolated chance for a shower late in the day on Sunday, and then some big changes for next week. After some showers on Monday, things get much cooler, highs only around 60 by Friday. Thanks for joining us at 5:30. The news at 6.